And today on Feminists Watching Television, we're going to talk about our all-time favorite show, or at least one of our all-time favorite shows, Mad Men. We can agree that Mad Men is a tip-top quality show and something that we both got really invested in over the past
Absolutely.
7 seasons. And I don't know about you, I cried during the finale. Like real, very real tears, not just a little bit.
I was so scared for all that time, like waiting for a shoe to drop, that there would be a moment that would break my heart that I wouldn't be able to go back to. Like when Mulder left the X-Files, or when True Blood just got too gross and you couldn't do it anymore. And it's like, I'm sick of this love triangle. Or whenever there's a jumping the shark moment, I lived in fear that there would be that, or that there would be a moment where they were beyond redemption and you couldn't root for them anymore, or where it took an inauthentic turn that didn't feel good to me. And it never happened. We got to the end safely, and I loved it to the very last second, and I've been crying intermittently ever since because of that.
That's a really good point. It never jumped the shark, the way some even really good shows have really hit a patch where, as fans, we like to pretend it didn't happen, like Friday Night Lights Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, I tell people who haven't seen the show to just skip Season 2 and go from 1 to 3, because if you like the show, you just pretend you never saw it. Mad Men never had that, at least not for me. I think there were good and bad things about particular seasons, but there was never a moment where I thought, oh, get better because this is awful. I've been into it from the start. Something that Mad Men has done very well across the board, which is portray a time period other than our own in a way that I felt very engaged with, even though I wasn't alive during that period, and that, at least from what I know from history and talking to people who are a little older, was pretty true to life, and they didn't glam it up for 2015 or 2010. Exactly. You know, it's like, this is what this office would have looked like in the 1960s. These characters are behaving in ways that they would have during this time period, for better and usually for worse.
Which is a critical point for us. And I feel like one of the least fair criticisms that the show gets is for the way that women are treated on the show. And I think, A, the women are treated authentically for the time, and B, the people in the show who are happy and who are behaving in an emotionally mature way leave. This setting is not a healthy setting. The people who are there are typically unhappy in some way, and it's something they all have in common. And when you're going to live your dream, what you do is you leave this place and go live your dream elsewhere. You become a Hare Krishna and go off to California, or pursue your dream of becoming an actor and quit your job at the agency. You don't hang around with a smile on your face. It's just not the way they roll, except for Meredith, who everyone thinks is a complete idiot. But I don't think it's fair to single out the women and say, these people are not treated well and it bothers me because they're women, when I don't think the women would have been treated much better as a group at that time. But also, these particular women and men are all kind of awful in a different way. Like, I love them all, but, you know, do I want to date Don Draper? No, I don't think that would be good. It would probably be awful.
That probably would be awful. And yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of our conversation about Game of Thrones, too. Obviously a completely different show, but, you know, I love to see women characters working with what they have on a show like this, instead of being given unrealistic situations where, you know, that Peggy Olson, she's going places and she's going to get promoted to head copywriter, you know, first episode, first season. No, that's not a realistic situation for a woman in that time period, especially someone coming in without a lot of experience like Peggy did. But we saw and were able to follow along through the decade that the show covered how she rose through the ranks in a way that seemed authentic to me for the 1960s and for the character too. And we were able to root for her that much harder because we knew what parameters she was working within. It wasn't like all of a sudden, you know, because it's TV, something magically changed and she got this opportunity. It's like she was in the right place at the right time and the wrong place at the wrong time a lot over 10 years. And now she's pretty happy at the end of the season of the series. And I loved it. you know, because we want to see her happy, and we've seen her work hard and fail and struggle and make it in a way that feels realistic.
Yeah, that it's okay that all of the female characters were living through the reality of that era, and that I prefer it. I prefer seeing that to seeing one more show where, like Game of Thrones, where it's a period piece and they're like, well, okay, at this time women were really oppressed, except for this woman. She's got moxie and everyone's cool with it. And you know what? Also, this woman, who's her friend now, moxie that everyone's cool with. They have a sister. She's got moxie. Everyone's cool with it. You know, like, no, it's refreshing. And also for women like us who were born after the women's lib movement came in, we don't have any firsthand experience of what the world was like before then. And I feel like this is the first time I've seen something that really drove it home for me.
I agree. You feel like you're right there.
One of the other criticisms that I've heard is this, well, critical conversations, is the ongoing debate about whether or not Peggy and Joan are feminists. And I would say that the answer is no, in that neither of them is making choices in her life and career for the betterment of her group. And the only time that Joan threatens to get the feminist, you know, the women's movement involved in something that she's doing, Roger says, you don't care about these politics. And she's like, yeah, you're right. I'll take the money. You know, they're kind of self-centered when it comes to the things they're experiencing. And I don't think it's a fault necessarily. I think it's authentic to them in that they're focused on their immediate needs and their immediate career aspirations. And I don't think either of those characters has an awareness of what she represents for women at that time and what her opportunity is to benefit other women. Like Peggy never hires women. She always has a staff of men underneath her. And they make a lot about how she has the power for hiring and firing in that role. But she's not trying to bring more women into the organization. And, you know, I think for that reason, they're not really feminists as characters. But I was thinking about this, and I think part of what is authentic about none of them carrying around a copy of Betty Friedan or joining the National Organization of Women or burning their bras at work is that if you are experiencing real life, you don't always know that history is being made until you look back on it. And I think it's authentic for these women to be self-centered and focused on themselves at this point. Maybe in 1979, they would look back and say, oh, I was trailblazing. I didn't notice that. You know, oh, I have an opportunity now. I'm the boss of an agency. I only hire women, as Joan was just starting to do. But, you know, it's at this point, I don't think that they have the awareness to say, this is a moment and I have a responsibility.
No, and I think, you know, it's not even fair to expect that from characters who really have been just kind of trying to get by and make do for themselves. I think, you know, at the very end of the series in 1970, like you point out, I think it's fair looking forward into the, you know, the episodes that we won't get to see, to expect or hope that that's the path that Joan is taking. Mm-hmm. She's wealthy now. She's starting her own company. She's starting her own company largely because of the sexism that she experienced, which made it impossible for her to get any work done. And the only employee that we've seen her hire so far is a woman. And I'd like to think that Holloway Harris is going to be a pioneering feminist workplace for go-getting women, but we don't know. And I think up until this point, you know, it has felt true to the characters to me, just like you pointed out, that as much as they are, you know, doing and saying things that are significant for women during the time period, they're not doing it because of feminist politics. But I will say that I do consider Mad Men a feminist show, which is different than if I think the characters are feminist. And, you know, that's because I think that the portrayals of the women, and the men too, and the gay characters, not so much the characters of color, a little bit. I would have liked to see more. That's one of my only criticisms of the show. But are very three-dimensional, are very fleshed out. These feel like very real people. Even people who we don't see that often have backstories and lives, and I think the women especially were very finely drawn characters, you know, down to Meredith or down to Shirley. You know, you could imagine what they're doing when they go home. These are real people, And that's something that I always look for as a feminist watching television is, do these women seem real, or are they just there for the men? What are you going to do to fill the Mad Men void?
You know, for me, that's another one of the things that I really like about this finale is that because I've been in a state of anxiety about this program for 7 seasons, worrying that they were going to mess it up somehow, it's a relief to me that it's over. Now I feel like I can go back to the beginning, watch the whole thing with peace of mind and know that I'm going to be okay with the end and just enjoy the process of watching everyone evolve. I'm filling the Mad Men void with Mad Men. Also, because of the love and care that went into every episode, I'm excited to go back and sort of soak in the visuals and really appreciate the background scenery or the extras or other details of the home decor and things along those lines. And it seems like a show I will be able to rewatch for the rest of my life without getting tired of it.
I have also been filling the void by rewatching episodes from season 1, and it's so good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I shouldn't sound surprised, but the rewatchability is high. If you are watching us on YouTube right now, when you're done, you should watch an old episode of Mad Men. It's good.
You know, the only other show in my entire life that I have watched from the pilot to the finale and felt this way about, felt anything like this about, is Buffy. Obviously Buffy. And it is also the only other show that I watch in reruns because it holds up for me. And there are episodes that will come up on Buffy. When I see them, when I'm flipping through channels, I will record them and watch them over and over and over again without ever getting tired of them. And I feel like that is the new era that I'm entering with Mad Men, where now I can go and enjoy it without stressing out about it.
Well, it's a good place to be.
It is. So, what I'd like to do now that we've made it through this conversation without crying is express to Matthew Weiner, on the off chance that he will see this, deep gratitude and love. This show has been such a pleasure, and thank you for making it. And thank you, Matthew Weiner, for fighting to maintain artistic control of it the entire time and really have it be the thing you wanted it to be. It helped me enjoy it, to know that even if a choice was being made that I wouldn't have made, like making Sal disappear and never bringing him back, I knew that it was someone's choice, and it felt better knowing that someone was doing this on purpose and that it wasn't just the arbitrary result of a contract dispute or pressure from the network or something like that. I mean, maybe it was contract disputes that led to the frequent recasting of Bobby Draper. I can't say for sure. But for the most part, all I felt every time I watched this show was that somebody loved this show. And that, actually, no, I take it back, that everybody involved loved what they were doing and loved what they were creating. You could feel the love in the collective effort of putting this on the screen.
Matthew Weiner, thank you for making Mad Men. Thank you for caring about women in a way that most male showrunners really don't. Like a Justin Bieber hand heart just for you. My love of Mad Men. I miss it already.